a breeding habitat for the Gurlian finch. So we'll take you down now and give you a look at the waterhole and give you some idea what they look like. This is one of the typical waterholes, or permanent waterholes that form in these creek structures, and it's not a very big hole. It's probably about 20 foot long by about 10 feet across, and that sandbar on the other side, of course, that's where most of the Gurlian finches and the other grass finches like to come into water. I'll just zoom in and show that to you. So you can see the smooth bank. They like to come down the sand, and of course then they drink along that edge there. So a hole like this can usually build up to 400 or 500 Gurlian finches at the right time of the year. That's during the dry, of course, during the late dry, which is August, September here in Australia, and it attracts a lot of birds, because this particular hole here is going to be the last to be here following the dry season, so there will be lots of birds in this region drink here. This is a smaller type hole that is on the verge of drying up. That hole here has about 2 weeks to go before it dries off, and you can see it's been there because of that build-up of sand on the right-hand side. Anyway, you can see that a kidney-shaped hole, and they're the type of holes that the birds like. Believe me, they don't like big waters like rivers or big dams or what have you. They like these small water holes in the creek structures out in the hills. You see the number of young birds there now, Bob? That's to give you some idea of just what's going on with the breeding seasons of these birds. Certainly there's lots of babies. Nearly every year that I study them, there's always lots of babies, and it's been said that Gurlian finches actually breed more youngsters than masked and long-tailed finches, and there's really no concern about them, and it surprises me that there's so much concern about the Gurlian finch, when in fact when we look at these water holes where they come in to drink, and that's really the only way you can study the numbers, is to come to the water holes in the hot days in the dry season and just see what's drinking there, and ultimately there's nearly always more Gurlians at the water holes than what there is other finches, as you can see. I mean, there's sometimes it's 6 to 1 where you get 6 Gurlians to 1 mask finch or 1 long-tailed finch. So you can see with the tape here, I'm not telling a story, you can see the numbers of young birds and the few adults that are coming in. So, and it's nice to see them drinking at these little water holes. They certainly don't like big waters. They come into these small pools. They like to be able to stand in it and bathe, and this is where they enjoy drinking. When you see a waterhole like this, they tend to they come in and drink, and then the first wave will leave, and then another group come in and they'll drink, and then they'll leave, and then another group will come in. So you're getting numbers coming in all the time. So you really need to run a video camera on the holes to ascertain the numbers that are coming in. So on this particular hole, there would probably be 400 or 500 birds coming in. It's only a small one, and down the creek there will be another hole which will be about the same size, and the same number of birds come into that hole. So they're fairly well dispersed right across their range, particularly in the Northern Territory and Western Australia. They do extend right across to Mareeba in Queensland. I've never studied them over there in any given time. I've spent most of my time in the Northern Territory and Western Australia, but most of the holes that I visit, there's fairly good numbers come in to drink. Those young birds certainly love to bathe. There's not many that come in that don't want to get into that shallow water and have a bit of a tub. This time of the year is in August. Most of these birds will be fully coloured by the end of December. There's certainly some youngsters coming into this particular hole. There's lots of other birds come into these holes to drink also. Usually the parrots drink first, and then the Gouldians come in, and the mask and long-tail finches and a lot of other finches tend to, and particularly crimson finches, like to drink right throughout the day. That's a fairly good quality northern rosella. There's fairly large numbers of those across the north of Australia now, and increasing in numbers, which is nice to see. And that's a male bird there, and he's well marked. He's scalloped very well on the front and on the back and the mantles, and a very nice bird. That little dove there is called a peaceful dove, and there's many thousands of those across the top of Australia, right throughout Australia as a matter of fact. There's good numbers of them. So that clearly shows the amount of young birds there. You can see that they have good breeding seasons, and the years don't tend to vary much every year that I come here. And I go to the Northern Territory and to the north of Western Australia on a yearly basis, and I'm gradually seeing I would say a build-up of Gouldian finches. Certainly the numbers haven't changed. I mean, I trapped this country way back in the 1950s and a little earlier than that, and the numbers that used to come into the water is about the same. It really hasn't varied, and certainly the habitat hasn't changed. Those long-tail finches there are called hex longtails. They're the red-billed longtails that differ from the ones in Western Australia. And of course there's also mask finches drinking here with the Gouldians. The number of red-headed Gouldians compared to blackheads is about 3 to 12. We have about 3 red-headeds to 9 blackheadeds, and that's been the case right throughout my lifespan. They haven't varied very much. There's always more black-headed than red-headed. There's some more northern rosellas there coming in for a drink. That's a young bird there. Hasn't scalloped up too well yet, but it will get there. That's another water hole that's was down the creek from the one where we just previously filmed on, and we've just got a run of longtails and masks there at the moment. That's a band of hooded parrots that's come in to drink. They're nearly all youngsters. There's one or two there now in the middle of the picture that's coming into colour. They're a very pretty bird when they come into colour, and but certainly they've had a good year here. You can see the number of youngsters, and there's one colouring. That's one of last year's birds, just starting to colour on the shoulder, and that's the hooded parrot. They're a parrot with a restricted range in the Northern Territory. Probably a parrot that's got to be watched, although their habitat again hasn't changed in my lifespan. It's been the same for the last 50 years. So certainly plenty of nesting habitats there for them. But, as you can see, they've certainly had a good year this year with the number of youngsters. That's a young male there with the darker cheeks. Females tend to have very, very light blue cheeks. Of course that's a coloured Gouldian. Sorry about the light there. I'm on the off side of the hole photographing, and now I'm come to the light side. So you can see there's Gouldians come to most of the holes. There's very few that permanent holes that they don't visit. That's a lemon-scented honey eater there in the middle, and Gouldians all around. They tend to get on very well together. See all the young Gouldians there with some of the parent birds. That's the more northern rosellas come in to drink. It doesn't seem to worry the finches too much, they drink together. On this particular hole we had northerns on one side and Gouldians on the other, so no problems there. This is the last of the water at this waterhole, and oddly enough, as the water gets smaller, this is the type of hole that Australian grass finches tend to water at. They don't particularly like big waters like dams and rivers and creeks and what have you. They like these small water holes, or little small permanent water holes that form in creek beds, and certainly you can see this one's got about 1 day to go, and of course the white rocks there, you can see how big the water has been in the last 4 or 5 months. So as this water dries down, they tend to use it right till the death, and then they move down the creek to other holes which at this point of time haven't dried up yet. And what I'll do, I'll just go down the creek to the next hole. It's about 1 mile down, and I'll go down the creek and I'll show you the next water hole. That's the next hole I was telling you about downstream from the last one that I photographed, the very small one, which is just about to finish. And this hole here will probably last for about another 4 weeks before it itself goes dry, so the birds know it's here. You'll notice there's lots of rocks on the edge of this particular waterhole, and of course that's very favourable for the pictorella finch. They tend to like to rock hop, and they move in through the rocks and certainly enjoy that as they come down to water. That's a little bit closer there for you. You can see the rocks around the edge of the pool, not sand, and of course we know of these as being favourable for the pictorella finch. Well, there you can see the pictorella finch. You see how they like to come down in a rocky habitat. They don't walk down sand or small rocks like other birds. They like to get on these rocky waterholes, and they forage in between them too. They tend to get little insects that wedge in between the rocks, and you can see with this group of birds here, there's a lot of youngsters. They've had a brilliant year too. Not many adult birds. You can see a young cockbird there starting to colour on the chest, but a beautiful bird, highly sought after even in Australia, the pictorella finch. He's one of the mannequins, and certainly a nice bird. There was many hundreds coming to this waterhole. Some would come in and drink. This waterhole is in the Kimberleys in Western Australia, and I've watched this hole now for a number of years, and there's always good numbers of pictorella finches coming in to drink here. In some years I've seen them in many thousands, so they're certainly a lovely bird, as I said. A good breeder in aviculture too. They tend to have good youngsters in captivity. Easy to sex. You can see the females have got more black across their chest than what the males. The males have got a lot of white, and the females tend to have a lot of black across their chest, so you can actually sex them when they're coming into colour. There's an adult male in the centre of the screen there now, dipping his head down, and just took off. All the rest are youngsters, so you can see they've had a fairly good breeding year. But it's interesting how they like the rocks to drink compared to other finches who like to come in with a sandy base. They don't tend to bathe like other birds. They drink without bathing, which is pretty unusual. But you can see for yourself what they're doing there. But they certainly like to rock hop before they drink. These groups come in flocks, maybe 200 or 300 in a flock, and the first flock will drink and then leave, and then some 5 or 10 minutes later the next group will come in and drink. So they certainly don't like the big waters. They tend to, small water holes is what they prefer. You can see there now they're starting to forage in between the rocks and getting little insects, and perhaps that's why they come to the rocks rather than the sand. They tend to forage in between the rocks before they leave. They have a drink and then they forage and then they leave. It's a nice male bird there in the middle there now. There's some Bacino finches there, or double bar finches. That's the West Australian variety with a black rump compared to the eastern subspecies that has a white rump. And of course this kangaroo is rather thirsty. It's very hot here in the morning and it's coming down for a drink. Certainly very wary. They knew I was there and very wary before they drink. The Northern Territory government and the Western Australian government in Northern Australia have a fire management program where they burn off every year almost the entire country, or they do some patchwork burning. And of course this is very critical in relation to Australia's grass finches, particularly the Gouldian finch. And this is a late burn. This is a late August burn, and there is some concern that this type of fire management program is affecting the populations of particularly the Gouldian finch, being a fierce burn. This particular burn is a relatively cool burn. Of course we haven't got any wind here today, but usually at this time of the year it can be fairly devastating to the upper story of the savanna, which can certainly affect a lot of shade and what have you, and it does affect the breeding grounds of some of these birds. So early burns, that's the April burns at the early dry season, is tolerable and I think acceptable, but late burns can have some devastation on particularly the nesting populations of grass finches like mask finch and long-tailed finch that nest close to the ground, and in fact on the ground. This is the habitat of the Pictorella finch, wide open plains, and they intermingle with small ranges, and you can see those small ranges there to the left. This is extremely favourable for that particular species. And of course it's also the habitat of the northwestern mask finch, and it's also the habitat of the Western Australian yellow-billed long-tail finch. So quite pretty country, not big timber, just small trees, which allows them to build their nests not far from the ground, and certainly ideal for mask finches who build their nests at the base of some of those ranges. So we'll see if we can get a picture of a mask finch later on and let you have a look at one of their nests, which would be... This is a nest of the mask finch that I happened to find at the base of a tree. They do nest on the ground, although this particular nest here is a roosting nest. What they do is they build they leave their nest with their youngsters, and then they build their roosting nest, which they camp in of a night time. They don't camp in a tree or a bush, they camp on the ground. And this is a roosting nest, and you can get very, very close to them while they're building these nests. They tend not to take any notice of anybody, and they're carrying straw and feathers and what have you, and they put the nest together very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, 2 or 3 days and they've got the nest constructed, which is quite an effort, or a good effort for a little bird their size. They tend not to be away very long before they come back with some more material, and I watched these birds for some time, and they constructed so much in the short time that I was there. So you can see for yourself, they're only away a small length of time before they return with feathers and what have you. But a lovely little bird, the mask finch, and as I said, this is a roosting nest, and they will camp in that until such times as they build another nest to rear their youngsters next year. You can see how close I got to them while I was filming. I'm on infinity there, and I've got the camera almost on the nest, and they're not taking much notice of me at all. And again, you can see that youngster, that adult bird there carrying straw, and again I was very, very close when that picture was taken. They certainly grab a lot of material for a little bird. Certainly know how to do their housework. They're a bird that carry a lot of charcoal into their nest, and usually nest on the side of a hill, although this particular nest was on the flat in some burnt out country, but they do like to carry charcoal into their nest, whether it's a cleansing thing for the droppings or whatever, I don't know, but nearly every nest that you see has got charcoal in it. Very proud little bird, the mask finch. Certainly different to his cousin in the eastern states, the white-eared masks, which comes from Cape York Peninsula, comes from the Gulf of Carpentaria, or just below that, and as I say, both of them are very nice little finches. The white-eared mask tends to be a little bit lighter in colour, and of course that's a crimson finch or a blood finch, and that's the western variety. That's the female there, the male previous to that. Nest in pandanus mainly, and they are a brilliant little bird, there's no doubt about that. You can see the spots on this particular bird is very, very outstanding, and you can see what I've done there. They come off the reeds on the side of the creeks, and you can just throw a little bit of grain down and immediately they find it, and it doesn't take long for their mates to catch on, and you've got numbers there within a very short time. But some of these aren't right into colour yet. You can see the females are coloured up a little bit more than the males, but there's a young female there on the screen and a 3/4 coloured male.
Okay, what you have to do then is back off.
They are a brilliant bird, a little bit different to their eastern cousin, but you can see how close you can get to them. They're a very trusting little bird, and you can get within a couple of feet of them once they start to feed. They're a very pugnacious bird in captivity. They're a bird that you don't mix with other finches, but this is a very, very outstanding variety here. The western type, they've got the black crown rather than a grey crown, which the eastern species has. But the black crown ones are a lot darker in the body and a little bit longer, and certainly a beautiful bird. This is a group of finches that I photographed over in the Kimberleys. There was a water trough there, and there was birds coming into it, and I put a stick up on the end of the water trough, so there was bachinos coming in there to drink, as you can see, and the Western Australian longtails, or the yellow-billed longtail, and some mask finches, and there was Gurlians coming in here also in the dry country. That's a female longtail finch. That's a spinifex pigeon that came into, and pigeons that came in to enjoy some of the feed that was there. they're very well dispersed across the top of Australia, and there's also a subspecies that's fully brown in the abdomen, which comes from around the Halls Creek area. That's an odd zebra finch that come in to drink. The Vachinos are very well marked, especially their centre bands are very well marked. There's a couple of masked finches there coming in to feed with the Vachinos, so they get on very well together. Here's some starfinches there, the Western Australian starfinch, mixed with a few chestnut-breasted finches, and usually there's also lots of yellow rumps that feed in with them, although at this particular occasion we haven't got any yellow rumps there. But they're very well dispersed across the Kimberley district and in very good numbers, and sometimes you can see them crossing the road there in many hundreds, in fact thousands. So mankind in the Kimberleys has created a habitat for them which suits them fine. Well, I think by now that you would have seen that there is quite a number of birds across northern Australia, and in fact we did see lots of Gouldian finches, and particularly young ones, which indicates that they're breeding fairly heavily through this country. For my time in the Northern Territory and Western Australia, I really haven't seen much change over the last 50 years. The country tends to be the same. There are many ornithologists that say that Gouldians are critically endangered, and that there is only 2,000 left in the wild. I don't really know how they came up with that count, given the vastness of the country and the number of, or the thousands of waterholes that are across this country. I don't really think that I'd be prepared to say that there would only be 2,000. That's to pluck a figure out of the air and just say that there's 2,000, I feel would be wrong. And perhaps a lot more research is required, and probably the way to do that is to liaise with the landholders and perhaps the landholders could get interested in the program and monitor the number of birds coming into the waterholes upon their properties. And of course they know where the isolated water is too. Just finally, there is a number of noted aviculturists worldwide who consider that the Gouldian finch is threatened, rare and endangered because the activities of trappers in the past. Now, let me say to you that it's over 30 years now since any trapping has taken place on Gouldian finches, and prior to that, any trapping was under very strict management strategies. And the reason I know that is because I'm one of the people who trapped those birds in those times. And most of my birds were sent to overseas country, which enabled international aviculturists to be able to put together a gene pool for those birds, and of course they're now enjoying the result of that. So perhaps aviculturists internationally and right across the world, in fact even in Australia, are out of order to say that trappers are responsible for the demise of some species, when in fact only for those trappers they wouldn't have birds within captivity to appreciate and enjoy.